Hey, how's it going? So I saw this morning that there was a developer message dropped by Kuro Games regarding Wuthering Waves, and I wanted to cover this morning, but unfortunately I had work this morning. So I'm going to kind of go over this a little bit now that I have some free time, and just kind of give my opinions on what kind of changes they are bringing to us based on the feedback in closed beta test 2. So starting off, we have section A, which is going to be combat. So the overall combat experience optimizations, we are addressing the issue of poor sound effects and hit feedback many of our players mentioned. So the kind of TLDR, I felt like the sound effects for like the a lot of like the skills and stuff like that were very lackluster. It lacked a lot of oomph to make it feel like there was some weight behind of what you're swinging around. And I think that kind of could be kind of improved upon because in terms of combat, like having a little bit of oomph behind like that little bit of power behind what you're doing kind of adds a little bit to like the hype of the combat. So it's good that they're going to be addressing that. Point number two: character specific combat optimizations. We'll be making adjustments for characters frequently mentioned feedback we receive. So this is uh, I don't know if this is going to be all characters that they're making adjustments to, or if it's just some, but these are just the ones that they have listed. So we have Ling Yang and Jianshin's moonsticks, which are elevated overall combat experience. I can't comment on all of these, but Jianshin I cannot comment on, but Ling Yang I did roll him in CBT, and honestly I had an issue where like you would attack, you would go into his burst like using his resonance ability, and if an enemy couldn't be knocked up into the air, or you just failed to knock up an enemy, or they fall, you essentially just were hitting nothing because he was too high up to attack them, and so that you're just kind of wasting your burst on thin air. Number two, adjusting Verina's HP restoration mechanism so she can use her energy more efficiently. I can't comment on that, but it's good to see that it makes some changes. And improving Kalkaro's kit, his extra intro skill necessary means will be available by default. I don't really know anything about this, but I did kind of look it up to see what this kind of meant, and apparently, this extra intro skill was something to lock behind his second, like having a second copy of him, his S2, and it was an animation, which I'm glad they're changing that because honestly, I hate that, like when they lock an animation behind a paywall. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I'm okay with people paying money for to make the character stronger, like higher multipliers, do extra things that like give them more power. When that is associated with an animation, that's where I kind of draw the line. I feel like character animation should be available for everyone and not just people paying the money. So number three, new combat skill practicing dungeons. One thing I did see is that like a lot of people didn't notice that there was like a character tutorial on the character screen. Some people kind of looked over that. I don't know how many people looked over it, but I saw a good number of people overlook that there was actually a character tutorial in the character screen. So it's good to see that they're going to be adding practicing dungeons, and I hope that they're going to add the character tutorials as part of that. So that way people can actually learn a little bit of what the characters could do and have a place that they can practice what they're able to do. So section B is going to cover over gameplay. This looks, if I remember correctly, this was mostly over the ecosystem. So starting, we received a lot of feedback on the ecosystem. Thank you so much for taking the time to test out the system and providing valuable suggestions. We have many suggestions and concerns about how the echo hunting experience was too grindy and how the game lacked disposal options for unwanted echoes and other issues. I agree. There were those were huge issues with the ecosystem. Like the ecosystem in of its entirety was way too grindy and too much of a cost to really level any of them. So point number one, making it easier to obtain various echoes. They plan to make echoes available through participating in in-game events, completing daily activities, and other means. So I don't know if this is also including that if they're going to raise the percent chance of obtaining echoes from monsters in the overworld. I hope so, but having new avenues to obtain echoes is going to be nice. But it also doesn't address that like the passive fields in of themselves were a waste of stamina for obtaining echoes as well, in my opinion. So we'll kind of see where they go with that. But it's nice that there's going to be more ways to obtain echoes. So hopefully that it makes it feel a little bit less grindy to obtain ones that you want. Because mostly the issue was just 3 cost and the 1 cost echoes because they were basically gated behind like the daily respawn timer of the enemies. Whereas the 4 cost echoes, the overlord bosses, you could farm them infinitely in your own world because they had their own respawn timer. Number 2, provide a better way to dispose of unused redundant echoes. You'll be able to recycle and unenhanced echoes by converting them into random new echoes of a type you have unlocked. Honestly, I wish that they would just let us feed these echoes into other echoes for EXP instead of just this. But I will take this over nothing because it still beats having them just being littered in my inventory as useless garbage. Because like in order to feed an echo into another echo, it had to already be leveled first. And so the ones that you didn't level because you didn't like the substats on them or the main stats on them for that matter, were just sitting there being wasted space in your inventory. So being able to recycle them into and re-roll into another echo is nice. I will hold my opinions a little bit more on this because I want to see what the exchange rate is on this. So like if it's going to be like you exchange 3 echoes, like 3 green echoes to get another green echo, or can you upgrade it? Say if you want to exchange 6 green echoes, you can then upgrade it into a blue. Those kinds of things. So that kind of stuff I will wait till to actually see it to hold my opinions on if this is actually a good change or a bad change. But in the overall scheme of things, it's nice that they're not just useless space in your inventory. Number 3, return tuners when tuned echoes are consumed. Another point that was a big concern was that when you fed an leveled echo that you had unlocked the substats for, you needed tuning materials to unlock those substats. If you fed that echo into another echo as EXP fodder, you got none of those tuning materials back. It was just a 70% EXP. So the fact that you're going to get a percent of those tuners back is really nice. I don't know what that percentage is because it says just designated percent of tuners. So assuming that like you got 70% of EXP back when you fed it into another tuner, into another echo, I hope it's going to be 70% of those tuners as well, but we'll see. Making it easier to get your desired substats. Well, you will raise the minimum numbers you can get with substat rolling and narrow the range of possible rolling results. If I had read this morning correctly, I'm assuming it means that they're going to remove some of the substat rolls that you can get on an echo to make it easier to obtain that like a specific desired subset. So instead of like 10 subsets you can roll into, you they might narrow it down to like 6 or something like that. That's how I'm interpreting this. I don't know if this is exactly true, but the other one we will raise the minimum numbers you can get with the substat rolling. That is huge because a huge gripe was that the diversity between a max roll and a min roll on the substat was too big. Like you could roll 5 crit damage or you could roll 30 crit damage, and that is massive, especially when you're trying to build like an end game set of gear for your characters. So the fact that they're going to raise that minimum number up to narrow that gap is really nice. Again, I'm going to hold my opinion on this because I don't know what that minimum number is. They could raise it from 5 to 7 for all I know. Hopefully they raise it to higher than that. Hopefully it'd be like a a number between like 20 and 30, so that way like, it's only a 10% difference between like a max roll and a min roll. But like I said, gonna hold my opinion. Hopefully it's not going to still be a huge gap. And then lastly, optimize the auto equip echoes mechanism. I'm not really going to comment on this too much because like I don't really use auto equip most of the time. I disagree with suggestions on auto equip. So if it provides good suggestions, that's good. And then they will also be additionally they will improve Echo Rider's skill to add a new transformation mode. When equipped, you can transform into the Infernal Rider. So this is kind of cool because it basically lets you add Infernal Rider as a mount that you can traverse in the overworld. And I hope they do this with more echoes than just Infernal Rider. So we'll see where this goes, but this is a really good improvement in terms of like just general overworld like traversing around. So number 2, there'll be new content for Depths of the Elusive Realm, which is basically the simulated universe equivalent from Honkai Star Rail, the roguelike. But they will be adding a tutorial stage. That's nice. I didn't really find it too hard to understand, but I can see how it could be difficult for some people to kind of grasp. A lot of my experience from playing Simulated Universe and Honkai Star Rail really translated really well over into this. So it only took like a couple runs for it to pick up. And then more playable characters to be added in Death's Elusive Realm. If I remember correctly, only Rover, Tauchi, and Baiji was available for play in it. And I was kind of only locked into two of those characters because like I didn't really have Baiji leveled. And then looks like they'll also be adding trial characters to the mode, which is also nice because if you don't roll a particular character, you can use a trial character to kind of test them out and see how if you like how they play. I don't know if this is going to include 5 stars. I hope it'll include like it'd be really cool if they added like the standard 5 stars into this and you can test 5 stars in depth of the elusive realm and kind of get your hands on how they play. But we'll see. I'm assuming it's probably just going to be like more 4 stars, but it would be really cool if they added some of the standard 5 stars into that. And then they're also working on other gameplay issues mentioned in feedback, such as drops from supply chests or enemies in the wild will be automatically picked up. This is big for me. I don't know if it's big for anyone else, but the fact that you had to press like the F key like 6 times to pick up everything in the chest, I thought was stupid. Same with like monster drops. Like you have unlimited space for this kind of stuff, and why is it not auto pickup? If I'm opening up a chest, I want everything that's inside of it. Why is it dropping on the ground, kind of thing? I don't want to hit the F key 6 times to pick up everything because I want everything in the chest. That's why I opened up the chest. The co-op mode will be available sooner at a lower union level. This is gonna be cool. I don't really play co-op too much myself, but I do think that union level 30 was a bit too high. I believe you could probably get union level 30 like within a week, but for co-op, I think a lot of people probably want to unlock co-op a little bit sooner than a week. So I think that's a really good change. And batch salvaging options for unwanted items in your backpack. So, that's really nice. Being able to mass remove stuff from your inventory to clear space is really nice instead of doing things one by one. Big, big W there. Section C, story cutscenes and animations. Uh, Working on frequently reported issues about story cutscenes and animations, including strange camera positionings, characters showing up at the wrong time, poorly matched lip animations, and lack of detail in story sound effects. And these are some of the progress they have made. So this is just what they have worked on so far. So step number one, like section number one, optimize the camera positioning and character animation in some parts of the story, improve lip animation and eye blinking animation. I hope this addresses my concern because there was a lot of sections in the story where like you could literally place the scene with a PNG with the text and it would change nothing about it because that was basically how dull what was happening on screen. Like the characters were not moving, they weren't really doing any animations at all. They were just kind of standing there like lifeless NPCs. And I'm like, this is kind of really ruining the immersion. Like, some people like actually move their bodies, they move their hands and stuff like that when they're talking. But like not even the camera angle was changing at all. So it was kind of like a huge negative for me when it came to like trying to pay attention to the story. Point number two, adjusted and rearranged the story quests. Progression for a smoother flow and change the unlock prerequisites for some story quests. I don't know everything that this is going to entail, but I hope this kind of makes. I kind of hope that this might make the story a little bit shorter. I think a lot of parts in the story were a bit unnecessary, too long-winded. So I'll hold my opinions a little bit on that because I do think that there were some parts of the story that were kind of unnecessary. Number three, rework the sound effects in the cutscenes for a better performance. Uh, Good because there was actually some parts in the story where characters would do something and there was just no sound effect associated at all. Personally, I didn't really report this because I interpreted it as like unfinished work. Like they have the assets, they just didn't add it into the closed beta test. And honestly, I probably should have reported it. It was one of those things. It's like I wasn't sure if like they probably know that this is not there and they have the assets and it will add it in the full game. But I was just like, this is just really weird. Uh, Number four, improve the skip function to make it work better. I honestly don't know what that means, because I mean, obviously, in terms of the functionality of the skip button, it worked fine. But the issue is that you can't skip any of the main story; it's only side quests. So I'm hoping that like making it work better means that it works in the main quest for people that might not be interested in the main story and they just want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of the end game and the actual gameplay experience of the game. So we'll see how that goes. But in terms of like improving the functionality, if it's still only going to work for the side quests, like it won't really affect me at all. But I hope that like if you're going to add a skip button, it's for all cutscenes, not just select. Section D, other optimizations and adjustments. Aside from the changes above, we are addressing the game issues such as crashes, blank screens, frame drops, device overheating, improving game performance on all devices in a top priority. We're also improving the character and environment designs and adjusting the UI for easier navigation, new events, new story content, and in early development. Or new story content are in early development, and we'll share our progress with you. So it's good to know that they are already working on some new content for us that was not in CBT. So it's like what we saw in CBT2 is not going to be everything that we'll have, and that they're also working on some of the UI performance issues and stuff like that. And then section E, localization. I don't probably have to really read it too much into this, but the localization in CBT2 was atrociously bad. A lot of mistranslations, like poor wording, I guess, is some of the other things. It's like I didn't have. There's some people that had an issue with like there was too much unique terminology. I guess is like the terminology wasn't general enough. But personally, I'm fine when they have unique uh like a unique dictionary, like unique set of terms that are to the world because it makes you feel a little bit more part of it. But in terms of like localization, there are definitely a lot of mistranslations, and this even goes beyond like some of the copy pasted text that was in the wrong place. And then they're also working on adding the English, Japanese, and Korean voiceovers in stories and character voice lines. So that's also good to hear. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like feels like it should be a given, considering we only had Chinese voiceover in beta. So I would hope that they're adding the other voices available to us in the full release. So, but yeah, that's kind of the TLDR. It's a kind of a long TLDR to be honest, but that's the developer message that they had provided to us today, early this morning. And let me know what you guys' thoughts on this. Did this address everything that you had wanted to see fixed in the game, or are there other issues that you still are hoping to see fixed? Drop those comments below, and but yeah, hopefully they do address everything that all the concerns that players have, and we'll have an amazing game on full release. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.